You've spent your whole life chasing happiness, success, love, pleasure, yet the emptiness still returns. What if the real purpose of life isn't happiness at all, but freedom from the suffering you've been running from? Today, we turn toward the truth you've avoided and begin to finally wake up. We grow up believing that the purpose of life is simple: to be happy. It is repeated to us like a sacred mantra by parents, teachers, advertisements, self-help books, and a society obsessed with smiling faces and endless positivity. From childhood, we are taught that if we study hard, achieve enough, earn enough, travel enough, love enough, and acquire enough, we will finally arrive at a place called happiness, a place where life will feel complete. But look closely at your own experience. Has that place ever truly arrived? Modern society confidently tells us that happiness is something you can chase, something you can build, something you can buy, earn, or achieve. Yet no matter how much we accomplish, the feeling slips away. A promotion brings excitement for a week. A new phone brings joy for 2 days. A dream vacation brings bliss until the moment you return home and reality reclaims its throne. The joy fades, the satisfaction dissolves, and the same question quietly returns. Why don't I feel fulfilled yet? Psychology calls this the hedonic adaptation trap, a treadmill that speeds up every time you think you've reached solid ground. Studies led by Harvard psychologist Daniel Gilbert reveal that even major life achievements, like landing a dream job or winning the lottery, only boost happiness temporarily before the mind returns to its baseline. The human brain is wired to get used to everything, even the things it once desperately wanted. This means the happiness you chase is biologically designed to fade. Even more revealing is the happiness paradox, one of the most consistent findings in modern research. A 2011 study by psychologist Iris Moss discovered that people who place a high value on being happy actually end up feeling less happy and more lonely. The more they chase happiness, the more they notice its absence. It becomes a pressure, an expectation, a burden. It becomes something they measure. Am I happy yet? Why not? What's wrong with me? Suddenly, happiness becomes another task on the to-do list. And in our hyper-connected digital world, the misunderstanding becomes even more distorted. Social media floods us with curated moments of bliss, sunlit vacations, perfect relationships, milestone achievements. We compare our messy, imperfect lives to the polished highlight reels of others and assume we are the only ones struggling. But behind every smiling photo is a human being with worries, doubts, and fears. We just never see their pain because pain isn't socially acceptable to display. So we look outward, thinking, if they have it and they're happy, I must be doing life wrong. This illusion pushes us deeper into the chase. More goals, more possessions, more accomplishments, more stimulation, more noise. In this race for satisfaction, we become disconnected from the present moment, the only place where life actually happens. But despite the constant striving, something inside remains uneasy. A quiet emptiness lingers beneath the surface, whispering that something fundamental is missing. That feeling is not a failure. It is a message, a signal that the approach you were taught is incomplete. Because here is the truth we rarely hear. Happiness was never meant to be the purpose of life. And the Buddha did not point us toward happiness. He pointed us toward freedom. Freedom from the cycle that makes happiness feel so unstable. Freedom from the suffering that arises every time we cling to pleasure or resist discomfort. Before we can wake up to that deeper purpose, we must first understand the misunderstanding that keeps us trapped. The misunderstanding that makes us chase mirages, compare ourselves endlessly, and suffer in silence. In this modern world, we are surrounded by noise telling us what life should be. But wisdom, real, transformative wisdom, begins when we courageously question everything we've been taught. This is where our journey begins. Not by running faster, not by chasing harder, but by turning inward and asking, with absolute honesty, what if everything I believe about happiness is incomplete? If the modern world's definition of happiness were true, then the people who have it all would be the most fulfilled among us. But look at the stories of those who reached heights most of us only dream of. Their reflections reveal a sobering truth. Achievement and pleasure cannot fill the emptiness inside, because the emptiness is not caused by a lack of achievements. Jim Carrey once said, "I wish everyone could get rich and famous and have everything they ever dreamed of, so they can see that it's not the answer." This is not the statement of a man who failed. It is the confession of a man who succeeded so completely that the illusion shattered from the inside. The same pattern appears across history. Isaac Newton, after unveiling the laws of nature and becoming one of the greatest scientific minds in human history, admitted near the end of his life, "I seem to have been only like a boy playing on the seashore, while the great ocean of truth lay all undiscovered before me." Even at the pinnacle of knowledge, he felt incomplete, like a child grasping at seashells while the vastness of existence remained untouched. Leonardo da Vinci, the very symbol of genius, expressed regret on his deathbed that he had offended God and mankind, because he believed his work was not good enough. Imagine that! The man who painted the Mona Lisa felt inadequate. What does that say about the nature of achievement? If the greatest among us feel insufficient, what chance do we have if we rely on success to supply our sense of worth? And then there is Steve Jobs, who changed technology, revolutionized multiple industries, and became a symbol of innovation. At the end of his life, he confessed that he neglected what mattered most: his relationships, his presence, his moments with family. He realized too late that the world he built externally could not heal the world he neglected internally. Michael Jackson, the king of pop, achieved heights in entertainment that may never be matched. But behind the applause, he revealed, "I'm never pleased with anything." The crowd roared, the record sold, the fame exploded, but the heart remained restless, unsatisfied. These are not isolated cases. They are patterns, patterns strong enough to tell us, outer success does not resolve inner suffering. Why? Because pleasure and achievement operate on a fragile system, one that depends entirely on conditions that constantly change. The very moment you attain what you want, a new desire rises. This hedonic treadmill, as psychologists call it, keeps the mind chasing but never resting. The pleasure fades faster each time, forcing you to run harder just to feel the same spark. You get a promotion, you feel good for days. You get a salary increase, you feel good for hours. You get more likes on social media, you feel good for seconds. The timeline of satisfaction shrinks, the hunger grows. Modern neuroscience explains why. The brain's dopamine system is designed not to keep you happy, but to keep you seeking. Dopamine spikes before you get something, not after. meaning the brain cares more about anticipation than fulfillment. As soon as you achieve your desire, dopamine drops, leaving you with a hollow quietness that can feel like disappointment. So you chase again, and again, and again. But the Buddha discovered this mechanism long before neuroscience existed. He observed the same pattern in his own palace life. Pleasure never lasted. Cravings always returned. And every return felt heavier. He realized the truth. Pleasure is not bad, but it cannot sustain you. Achievement is not wrong, but it cannot complete you. They are temporary visitors, not permanent residents. The reason achievement cannot fill the inner void is simple yet profound. Because the void was never caused by a lack of external achievements. It was created by the mind's refusal to rest in the present moment. A restless mind cannot be satisfied, not by fame, not by wealth, not by applause, not even by love. A restless mind is a thirsty traveler trying to drink from a mirage. This is why people with everything still feel empty, and why people with little can feel profound peace. The emptiness does not come from what you lack, it comes from what you misunderstand. Before we go deeper into the Buddha's insight, we must now confront a more unsettling truth. The reason we chase pleasure is not because pleasure is so beautiful, but because suffering is so uncomfortable. This brings us to the next layer of understanding, the mechanics of desire, the cycle that keeps us bound, and the reason we suffer even when everything seems to be going well. This is where the real awakening begins. Most people believe they pursue happiness because happiness is a beautiful, shining thing. But the Buddha revealed something startling, something modern psychology now confirms. We are not running toward happiness. We are running away from discomfort. This is the truth hidden beneath every craving, every ambition, every late-night impulse, every restless search for more. You don't scroll your phone for pleasure, you scroll to avoid boredom. You don't overwork for joy, you overwork to escape the fear of inadequacy. You don't seek validation for love, you seek it to silence the pain of not feeling enough. The Buddha described it perfectly in the Salatha Sutta, the teaching of the two arrows. He said, "When touched with a painful feeling, the ordinary person seeks pleasure because he does not see any other escape. Not because pleasure is so wonderful, but because discomfort feels intolerable. Pleasure becomes medication, not fulfillment, relief." This explains so much of human behavior. The itch and scratch illusion. Imagine an itch on your arm. Scratching it brings relief, even pleasure. But is the pleasure real? Or is it simply the temporary easing of discomfort? If you had no itch, scratching your skin wouldn't feel pleasant. It would feel irritating. The pleasure exists only because the pain came first. Now look at life through that lens. The pleasure of eating comes from ending hunger. The pleasure of achievement comes from ending insecurity. The pleasure of social approval comes from ending self-doubt. The pleasure of entertainment comes from ending boredom. Every pleasure is actually a temporary pause in a deeper discomfort. We mistake relief for happiness, and because the relief fades, we become addicted to scratching, to food, to achievement, to entertainment, to validation, to stimulation. Modern psychology confirms the Buddha. Addiction research reveals the same pattern. People continue addictive behavior not to feel high, but to avoid feeling low. The brain prioritizes avoiding pain
far more than seeking pleasure. This is known as negative reinforcement and governs much of human life. The smoker smokes not to feel good, but to avoid withdrawal. The overachiever works not to feel proud, but to avoid feeling behind. The lonely person scrolls social media not to connect, but to avoid silence. Human suffering is built on this cycle of avoidance. Why craving never ends. The Buddha called this cycle tanha, craving, not desire in the simple sense, but the kind of desire that refuses the present moment. Craving says, this moment is not enough. This feeling is not okay. I must escape. I must become something else. And so you chase, grasp, strive, avoid, but the universe has one uncompromising law. Everything changes, and craving cannot accept change. So even when you get what you want, the relief lasts only as long as the conditions stay perfect. As soon as they change, as they always do, the itch returns, and you scratch again. This is why. The taste of pleasure fades. The thrill of success fades. The intensity of romance fades. The excitement of novelty fades. Pleasure is built on unstable conditions. Suffering is built on resistance to instability. Eating, a clear example. Consider eating your favorite food after a long day of hunger. The first bite is bliss. The second is delightful. The third is nice. The 10th is heavy.
The 20th is painful. Where did the pleasure go? It was never in the food. It was in the ending of discomfort. Pleasure changes into suffering when the conditions change. This is what the Buddha called the suffering of change, viparinama dukkha. Not because the world is cruel, but because the mind clings to conditions that cannot stay. The treadmill of desire. Now imagine this pattern projected onto your entire life. You run from discomfort, get relief, discomfort returns, run again. It is a treadmill that never stops. The Buddha said craving is like a fire. You keep feeding it, but it never says enough. You cannot quench a fire by giving it more fuel. You cannot satisfy craving by giving it what it wants. Craving is the suffering. And yet, we build our entire life around trying to satisfy craving. We live as if one more achievement, one more relationship, one more success will finally seal the hole inside us. But the hole is not in the world. The hole is in our understanding. Before he awakened, the Buddha saw this cycle in himself and in all humanity. He realized that suffering doesn't come from life. It comes from the mind's reaction to life. This is the first great insight of awakening. Not that life is painful, but that our relationship to life is painful. And so the question becomes, how do we stop running? How do we stop scratching? How do we stop feeding the fire? The answer begins where the Buddha's journey began, by turning toward suffering, not away from it, by understanding it, by seeing clearly the nature of the mind. This clarity led to a discovery that changed human history, the true cause of suffering and the possibility of its end. This leads us into the next part of our journey. The Buddha's turning point. The moment he stopped chasing happiness and began seeking truth. Before Siddhartha became the Buddha, he lived in a palace where suffering did not exist, or so he was told. His father believed that if the young prince never saw pain, he would never question life, never seek the spiritual path,
never abandon the throne destined for him. So Siddhartha was surrounded by beauty, comfort, luxury, and youth. No sick people, no aging, no death, no sorrow. A perfect world was crafted around him. But it was only a perfect illusion. And one day, that illusion cracked. Siddhartha stepped outside the palace walls and encountered what human beings spend their lives trying to ignore. An old man, a sick man, a corpse, and a wandering ascetic. 4 simple sights, 4 unavoidable truths, 4 realities that we still, in our modern life, cannot fully accept. These revelations shook him, not because they were new. Everyone ages, everyone falls ill, everyone dies. But because he saw them, not intellectually, but directly, deeply, without the filters of denial or distraction. He saw what we often avoid, that everything we cling to is fragile and temporary. Your youth will fade, your health will shift, your relationships will change. Your possessions will decay. Your achievements will be forgotten. Your life will end. Not out of cruelty, but because impermanence is the nature of all things. In that moment, Siddhartha realized a truth that modern humans still struggle with. Pleasure is not stable enough to build a meaningful life on. Success is not permanent enough to give you peace. Happiness is not reliable enough to solve suffering. And more importantly, you cannot outrun suffering by building a perfect life. We try anyway. We build careers to outrun insecurity. We chase relationships to outrun loneliness. We seek validation to outrun self-doubt. We gather possessions to outrun fear. We make ourselves busy to outrun the silence. We are no different from the prince in the palace, trying to design life so well that suffering cannot reach us. But suffering is not something outside to be avoided. It is inside us, woven into the fabric of craving, fear, and impermanence. When Siddhartha saw this clearly, he asked the question that becomes the turning point of every awakening. If suffering cannot be escaped through pleasure or achievement, where does freedom truly come from? That question broke open the world. Rather than returning to the palace, rather than distracting himself with luxury, Siddhartha did something few people ever dare to do. He turned toward the suffering. He faced what others run from. He walked directly into the human condition. He left behind his wealth, not out of rejection, but out of understanding. He saw that no amount of comfort could answer the deepest question of life. How can a human heart be free in a world of constant change? This is where the spiritual journey truly begins, not in temples or monasteries, but in the honest confrontation with reality, with the truth that everything we cling to slips through our fingers, with the realization that life cannot be controlled, with the courage to investigate our own suffering. Siddhartha's awakening began when he stopped avoiding the truth. And this is where our awakening begins as well, because the same forces that moved Siddhartha are present in your life right now. The anxiety that comes when the future feels uncertain. The sorrow that comes when someone you love is gone. The fear that comes when your life doesn't match your expectations. The dissatisfaction that lingers even when things go well. The weight you feel when you look for meaning but don't know where to turn. These are not signs that something is wrong with you. They are signs that you are human. The Buddha did not deny suffering, he investigated it.
He did not run. He sat under the Bodhi tree until he understood. And what he discovered would become one of the greatest psychological breakthroughs in human history. A truth that explains not only why we suffer, but how suffering can end. This is the moment where his journey and ours takes a profound shift. From the illusion of pleasure to the understanding of reality. From chasing happiness to ending the cause of pain. From running away to waking up. And that awakening begins with the Buddha's most foundational insight, the Four Noble Truths. In the next part, we step into that wisdom, the first complete diagnosis and cure for the human condition, the lens that reveals why we hurt and how we heal. When Siddhartha awakened under the Bodhi tree, he did not discover a religion. He discovered a pattern, a psychological law woven into every human heart. A law so universal, so precise, so replicable, that 2,500 years later, modern psychology, neuroscience, and trauma therapy continue to confirm it. He summarized this law in 4 profound insights, not as beliefs, not as dogma, not as philosophy, but as the clearest diagnosis and treatment plan for human suffering ever recorded. These are the 4 Noble Truths. And if you truly understand them, not just intellectually, but experientially, your entire relationship with pain, pleasure, desire, and identity will transform.
Let us walk through them, slowly, deeply, with honesty, as they apply to your life right now. The first noble truth, dukkha, the truth of suffering. The Buddha began not with positivity, but with honesty. He said, "There is suffering. Not you are the problem. Not life is miserable. Not give up hope. Simply, look closely and you will see dissatisfaction everywhere." Dukkha is often mistranslated as suffering, but it also means unease, restlessness, dissatisfaction, the sense that something is always off, the quiet ache that follows you even on good days. It is the feeling you get when you finally get what you want and the joy fades. You fear losing what you love. You want the moment to last, but it changes anyway. Life doesn't match your expectation. Your mind refuses to rest. Dukkha is waking up at 3 a.m. with anxiety. Dukkha is the hollowness after an achievement. Dukkha is the ache after heartbreak. Dukkha is the disappointment of unmet dreams. Dukkha is the tension of wanting life to be different than it is. The Buddha didn't say this to depress you. He said it because, without acknowledging the problem, there is no path to freedom. Awakening begins with honesty. The second noble truth, tanha, the origin of suffering. Then the Buddha said something revolutionary. Suffering has a cause, and that cause is craving. Not craving in the simple sense of "I want chocolate," but craving in the existential sense, the deep, perpetual refusal to accept the present moment. There are 3 types of craving. 1. Craving for pleasure, kama tanha. The need for stimulation, excitement, comfort. The belief, "I will be happy when I get this." But pleasure always fades. Its nature is to rise and fall. 2. Craving for becoming, bhava tanha. The need to become more, successful, impressive, worthy. The belief, I am not enough yet. This keeps us trapped in endless striving. 3. Craving for non-existence, vibhava tanha. The desire to escape, numb, shut down, disappear. The belief, I cannot bear this moment. This manifests as addiction, avoidance, denial. Suffering is not caused by pain. Pain is part of life. Suffering is caused by the mind's demand that life be other than it is. A famous teaching says, pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. You cannot avoid aging, sickness, loss, change, endings, uncertainty. But you can change how your mind responds to them. You suffer not because life is painful, but because craving demands permanence in an impermanent world. Craving fights the universe, and the universe always wins. The third noble truth, Nirodha, the cessation of suffering. Now comes the most hopeful truth humanity has ever been given. If suffering has a cause, then suffering can end. If craving creates suffering, then the end of craving is the end of suffering. Not the end of life's challenges, not the end of emotions, not the end of responsibility, but the end of the inner struggle against reality. This state is called nirvana, literally extinguishing. Like a flame that goes out when the fuel is gone. What is extinguished? The fire of greed, the fire of hatred, the fire of delusion. Nirvana is not a mystical paradise. It is the experience of complete inner freedom. Freedom from compulsive wanting. Freedom from constant fear. Freedom from the stories in your head. Freedom from the endless chase.
Imagine living life without the pressure to prove yourself, the fear of losing what you love, the anxiety of trying to control the uncontrollable, the addiction to pleasure, the restlessness of wanting something else. This is nirvana in daily life, a mind that is not enslaved by craving. You still feel, you still love, you still live fully, but you are not driven by the fires that once consumed you. The fourth noble truth, Magga, the path leading to the end of suffering. Here is what makes Buddhism different from philosophy. It offers a practical method, not just ideas. The Buddha did not say, life is suffering, accept it. He said, life contains suffering, and here is the path to freedom. This path is called the Noble Eightfold Path. 8 principles that train the mind, purify the heart, and transform the way you live. 1. Right view. 2. Right intention. 3. Right speech. 4. Right action. 5. Right livelihood. 6. Right effort. 7. Right mindfulness. 8. Right concentration. These 8 are not commandments. They are not rigid rules. They are practices, a way of living with wisdom and clarity. They represent how you see, how you think, how you speak, how you act, how you work, how you apply effort, how you stay aware, how you cultivate inner peace. It is a complete training system for the mind, a manual for human flourishing. And unlike pleasure, which fades, changes, and betrays,
The qualities developed on this path are stable, reliable, and unshakable. The Eightfold Path is not a religious ritual. It is a psychological technology, a system for rewiring how you relate to reality, a path that reduces suffering at its root.
A method you can test for yourself, moment by moment. The Four Noble Truths as a whole. These truths form a perfect loop. 1. There is suffering. 2. It has a cause. 3. It can end. 4. There is a path to its ending. This structure mirrors the logic of a doctor. Diagnosis, cause, prognosis, treatment. The Buddha was the first great physician of the human mind. His teaching is not about belief. It is about observation, experience, and transformation. And this path, this medicine, this cure is available to you now. In the next part, we begin walking the path, starting with the first steps of wisdom and intention, the foundation on which all inner freedom is built. When the Buddha described the path to freedom, he began exactly where all inner transformation must begin, with how you see. Before any change in behavior, before any shift in habits, before any deep meditation, there must be a shift in perception. Your worldview shapes your suffering more than your circumstances ever could. Two people can experience the same event. One collapses under it, the other grows from it. The difference is not the event, it is the view. Right view is the foundation of the entire Eightfold Path, because no amount of effort, morality, or mindfulness can help you if the lens through which you see life is distorted. If your mind insists that life should be stable, predictable, controllable, and permanently pleasurable, then every moment of reality will feel like a betrayal. But if you see life as it truly is, impermanent, interconnected, constantly unfolding, then even difficulties become part of a deeper wisdom. Right view, seeing clearly without illusion. Right view does not mean believing in Buddhism or adopting any spiritual doctrine. It means seeing the world without the filters that create suffering. Right view is built on three profound recognitions. 1. Everything is impermanent, anicca. Nothing stays the same. Your emotions change, your relationships evolve, your thoughts arise and pass, your achievements fade, your identity shifts. Even the cells in your body are continually dying and renewing. When you expect permanence in an impermanent world, you suffer. Right view whispers, let things change, they are meant to. 2. Everything is unsatisfactory when clung to. Life is not painful because things change. Life is painful because the mind demands that they don't change. You don't suffer because you age. You suffer because you cling to youth. You don't suffer because relationships evolve. You suffer because you cling to how they used to be. You don't suffer because circumstances shift. You suffer because you cling to what is familiar. Right view teaches, suffering is not in the event, it is in the attachment. 3. Nothing is truly separate, anatta, or interdependence. Your happiness is woven into others. Your actions influence countless lives. Your thoughts ripple into the world. You are not isolated. You are part of a vast, interconnected web. This understanding dissolves the illusion of me versus the world. You become softer, kinder, more aware. Right view reminds you, You are not alone. You never were. Why right view is so transformative. Everything you experience is filtered through your perception. If you see challenges as punishments, life will feel unfair. If you see challenges as teachers, life will feel meaningful. If you see discomfort as failure, you will suppress and avoid it. If you see discomfort as part of growth, you will move through it.
If you see happiness as a goal, you will chase endlessly. If you see happiness as a byproduct of wisdom, you will relax into life. Modern psychology agrees. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, one of the most effective therapies in the world, is based on the same idea. Your thoughts shape your emotions. Change how you think, and your life changes. Neuroscience confirms it. Repeated ways of seeing literally rewire your brain. Right view is not philosophical. It is biological. When you see clearly, you suffer less. When you suffer less, you live more. Right intention. Aligning the heart with wisdom. If right view is the compass, right intention is the wind that pushes the ship forward. It is the energy behind your actions, the quality of your motivation, the alignment of your heart with freedom. The Buddha described 3 forms of right intention. 1. The intention of letting go, renunciation. This is not about giving up joy. It is about releasing what harms you, your compulsions, your grasping, your clinging. It is the intention to loosen your grip on unhealthy habits, destructive desires, toxic attachments, the need to control, the demand that life always match your expectations. Letting go is not loss. Letting go is freedom. 2. The intention of goodwill, loving-kindness. To wish well for yourself and others. To relate without hostility. To walk through life without carrying hatred. This intention softens the heart. It creates space for healing. It turns relationships into spiritual practice. A mind filled with goodwill cannot simultaneously hold deep suffering. 3. The intention of harmlessness, compassion. The commitment to cause less harm, to yourself, to others, to the world. It is the intention to respond, not react, to soothe, not wound, to serve, not exploit. Compassion is the natural expression of a mind that sees clearly. When you understand that everyone suffers, you cannot help but wish for their relief. How right view and right intention work together. Right view changes how you see life. Right intention changes how you move through life. Together, they form the foundation of awakening because when you see clearly, your intentions shift naturally. When your intentions shift, your actions become aligned. When your actions align, suffering decreases. When suffering decreases, the heart opens. When the heart opens, wisdom grows. And when wisdom grows, freedom unfolds. You begin living not from fear, but from clarity. Not from craving, but from understanding. Not from reaction, but from presence. Practical mindfulness applications. Let's ground this in everyday situations. Situation: someone criticizes you. Without right view, I'm being attacked through anger, defensiveness. With right view, this is impermanent. This is their perception. This is a moment. With right intention,
I respond with clarity, not harm. Situation, you feel lonely. Without right view, I'm broken, something is wrong with me. With right view, these feelings arise and pass. I am part of a larger human experience. With right intention, I offer myself compassion instead of rejection. Situation, things don't go as planned. Without right view, this shouldn't be happening, through frustration. With right view, conditions changed, this is natural. With right intention, I move forward with kindness toward myself. A simple daily practice. Each morning, ask yourself, what intention will guide me today? Then choose. Letting go, goodwill, harmlessness. Hold that intention in your heart like a quiet flame.
Let it shape your decisions, your tone of voice, your reactions, your presence. This is mindfulness, not as an exercise, but as a way of being. Right view and right intention do more than reduce suffering. They transform the mind into an instrument of clarity rather than confusion, a source of peace rather than conflict, a home rather than a battlefield. Now that the foundation is set, the next step is to carry this wisdom into your speech, your actions, and your way of living, the outer expression of your inner transformation. In the next part, we explore how this wisdom becomes visible in daily life through right speech, right action, and right livelihood. Once your view is clear and your intention is aligned with wisdom, the next transformation naturally flows into the way you show up in the world, how you speak, how you act, and how you earn your living. These three aspects, right speech, right action, and right livelihood, are the bridge between inner awareness and outer life. They turn mindfulness from a personal insight into a lived expression. In Buddhist psychology, these elements are not moral commandments meant to impose guilt or fear. They are practical tools designed to reduce suffering, for you and for everyone around you. A mind filled with clarity and compassion cannot flourish in a life built on harmful speech, careless actions, or unethical work. These behaviors create internal contradiction, and this contradiction becomes suffering. Right speech, right action, and right livelihood purify the path, not by forcing you to be perfect, but by teaching you to live in a way that no longer contradicts your deepest values. Right speech, transforming words into instruments of peace. Words are powerful. They can heal or harm. They can clarify or confuse. They can build trust or destroy it. The Buddha taught that suffering spreads through unmindful speech. He identified 4 forms of speech that create pain. 1. False speech, lying. Lies fracture the mind. Each lie forces the heart to hold 2 realities, the truth and the story. This split creates inner tension. When your words and your inner reality match, your mind rests. Truthfulness is not about moral superiority. It is about inner alignment. 2. Divisive speech, gossip, and rumors. Gossip may feel exciting, but it pollutes the mind. It keeps your attention fixated on the flaws of others, reducing your capacity for compassion. Psychological studies show that gossip increases anxiety and decreases relationship trust. It costs more than it gives. Right speech asks, does this build connection or break it? 3. Harsh speech, anger disguised as honesty. Truth spoken without kindness becomes a weapon. Anger discharged through words leaves scars that last long after the moment is over. Right speech does not say, "Don't speak firmly." It says, "Speak firmly without cruelty." This preserves both dignity and truth. 4. Idle speech, talking without purpose. Constant chatter, complaints, bragging, and meaningless noise drain your attention. Much of our suffering today comes not from pain, but from mental clutter. Right speech invites you to speak with intention. Is it true? Is it timely? Is it beneficial? Is it kind? You don't need to be silent. You simply need to make your words worthy of the breath they ride on. Right action, living with integrity and non-harm. Right action goes beyond morality. It is a strategy for mental clarity. Actions that violate your conscience always circle back as inner conflict. The Buddha focused on 3 fundamental behaviors. 1.
Respect for life, not harming others, physically, emotionally, or mentally. Not out of obligation, but because harming others ultimately harms you. Every act of violence plants fear in your own heart. Right action asks you to walk through life without leaving a trail of wounds. 2. Respect for what is not given. Taking what is not freely offered creates distrust in the mind. Even small forms of dishonesty, a stolen item, an unpaid debt, a misused resource, create the belief that you need to hide. Integrity is mental freedom. When you take only what is given, your heart becomes light. 3. Respect for boundaries and relationships. This includes sexual responsibility, fidelity, and consent. It means relating to others without exploitation or manipulation. It means choosing intimacy rooted in honesty, not craving. When you respect the boundaries of others, your own boundaries become clearer. Why right action matters. Every harmful action, no matter how small, creates a ripple. Guilt, shame, restlessness, distrust, self-judgment. These ripples disturb the mind and interfere with meditation, mindfulness, and peace. Right action purifies your conduct so your inner life can bloom without contradiction. When your actions align with your values, your mind becomes a safe place to live. Right livelihood, the ethics of how you earn your living. Right livelihood asks a simple yet profound question. Does the way I earn money increase suffering or reduce it? The Buddha identified professions to avoid, not because they are sinful, but because they inevitably damage the heart. Trading weapons, harming or killing living beings, trafficking humans, dealing in intoxicants, producing poisons or harmful substances. In today's world, the spirit of right livelihood extends to dishonest marketing, exploitative business practices, corrupt financial systems, industries that harm health, minds, or the planet, careers that force you to act against your values. The point is not perfection. The point is reducing the gap between how you earn money and who you want to become. If your work contradicts your deepest values, inner conflict will follow you everywhere. You may have financial security, but you will not have peace. What right livelihood looks like in modern life? It might look like choosing honesty over profit, refusing to manipulate customers, treating coworkers with compassion,
leaving a toxic industry over time, creating value rather than extracting it, simplifying your lifestyle so you don't depend on unethical work. Some people completely change careers. Others shift how they behave within their current job. Right livelihood is a spectrum, not a binary. The transformation begins when you ask, does my work harm or heal? And then take the next small step toward healing. The real purpose of these three practices, right speech, right action, and right livelihood, do not exist to make you morally pure. They exist to make your mind free. When your speech is gentle, your heart is peaceful. When your actions are kind, your conscience is quiet. When your livelihood aligns with your values, your inner world stops fighting your outer world. A peaceful mind cannot grow on a foundation of harmful behavior. These practices prepare the soil for deeper meditation and awakening. They allow you to live a life you don't need to escape from. In the next part, we move inward again, into the core of mental transformation. Right effort and right mindfulness, the twin engines that train the mind to release suffering at its root. If right view and right intention are the compass, and right speech, action, and livelihood are the path beneath your feet, then right effort and right mindfulness are the engine, the living force that moves your inner world toward freedom. Without these two, spiritual practice becomes philosophy. With them, it becomes transformation. These are the practices that shape every moment of your day. They teach you how to work with your mind, how to respond instead of react, how to cultivate peace, and how to end suffering at its source. They are the practices that make awakening real. Right effort, the art of mental cultivation. Right effort is not about working harder. It is not the Western grind culture, not hustle, not self-punishment, not pushing yourself to exhaustion. The Buddha described right effort as balanced, joyful, and sustainable. A gentle but consistent shaping of the mind. He summarized it into 4 essential efforts. 1. Prevent the arising of unwholesome states not yet arisen. You protect the mind before it falls. This is preventative mental health. Examples: avoiding triggering environments, pausing before reacting, catching early signs of anger, stepping away before you explode, noticing tension before it hardens into stress. You don't wait for the fire to start, you avoid the spark. 2. Abandon unwholesome states that have already arisen. When anger, greed, jealousy, fear, or anxiety arise, right effort helps dissolve them without judgment, not by suppressing, not by escaping, not by indulging, but by acknowledging, breathing, softening, opening. You say to yourself, this is anger, this is fear, this is desire. I see you, I understand you. You may leave now. Awareness melts what resistance strengthens. 3. Cultivate wholesome states not yet arisen. These are inner qualities like kindness, patience, equanimity,
clarity, gratitude, compassion, courage. Right effort consciously invites these qualities into your life. You don't wait for patience to magically appear. You practice it moment by moment. 4. Maintain wholesome states that have arisen. This is sustaining what is good, keeping your heart open once it has opened, protecting your inner peace once it has appeared. This is the effort that turns fleeting calm into enduring resilience. Together, these 4 efforts function like tending a garden. Prevent weeds, pull out weeds, plant flowers, water the flowers. The garden is your mind. Right effort is the gardener. Why right effort matters? The mind is not static. Every moment it moves in one of 2 directions, toward suffering or toward freedom. Right effort is the practice of gently steering it back toward freedom. Without the right kind of effort, the mind becomes a wild field, overgrown, reactive, chaotic, exhausting. With right effort, the mind becomes a place you can finally rest. Right mindfulness, the power of seeing clearly. If right effort shapes the mind, right mindfulness reveals the mind. Mindfulness is not relaxation. It is not spacing out. It is not forcing yourself to be calm. Mindfulness is presence, the ability to be fully here, awake, aware, open, without being pushed or pulled by craving or aversion. The Buddha described mindfulness as the direct path to liberation. Why?
Because mindfulness allows you to see the true nature of experience. Without mindfulness, you react. With mindfulness, you respond. Without mindfulness, you're lost in stories. With mindfulness, you see the moment as it is. The 4 foundations of mindfulness. The Buddha taught mindfulness in 4 deep dimensions. 1. Mindfulness of the body. You anchor awareness in physical sensations. Breathing, walking, eating, sitting, posture, tension. The body becomes a refuge, a doorway into the present moment. When the mind is overwhelmed, the body is still here. 2. Mindfulness of feelings. Noticing the emotional tone of each moment. Pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. You no longer get swept away by emotions. You see them as passing weather patterns, rather than permanent realities. 3. Mindfulness of the mind. You observe the mind's state. Distracted, angry, calm, anxious, joyful, tired, greedy. You begin to understand your mental habits. Awareness breaks reactivity. The mind can no longer deceive you when you are watching it. 4. Mindfulness of mental processes, dhammas. You notice patterns, craving, resistance, stories, judgments, identities, narratives. You see how suffering forms, moment by moment, thought by thought. Mindfulness reveals the machinery of the mind, the way an engineer sees the machinery of a clock. And once you see how suffering is constructed, you stop participating in its construction. Mindfulness turns pain into wisdom. With mindfulness, anger becomes a signal, not a weapon. Fear becomes a teacher, not an enemy. Desire becomes a messenger, not a master. Sadness becomes a doorway, not a prison. Mindfulness does not erase pain. It dissolves the extra suffering layered on top of pain.
It transforms pain into understanding. A simple, powerful mindfulness practice. Try this. Pause. Feel one breath. Notice what is present. Soften around it. Let the moment be as it is. This tiny practice interrupts the entire cycle of craving. It turns reaction into response. It gives you a choice. Freedom begins in one breath. The union of effort and mindfulness. Right effort guides the mind. Right mindfulness illuminates it. Together, effort shapes intention. Mindfulness reveals truth. Effort cultivates qualities. Mindfulness stabilizes them. Effort prevents harm. Mindfulness exposes patterns. Effort pulls you forward. Mindfulness brings you home. These two are the heartbeat of the path. Without them, wisdom stays theoretical. With them, wisdom becomes embodied. They turn awakening from a concept into a lived experience. In the next part, we enter the deep waters. Right concentration, the art of stillness, the training that strengthens the mind so profoundly that clarity, peace, and equanimity arise naturally. This is the training that makes freedom unshakable. If mindfulness is the awareness that opens your eyes, then right concentration is the stillness that opens your depth. It is the practice that gathers the scattered pieces of your attention into a single, powerful beam, steady enough to illuminate truth, calm enough to dissolve reactivity, deep enough to transform your entire inner world. In a world addicted to stimulation, this ability to rest the mind in one place without drifting has become a superpower. Modern life fragments our attention into thousands of tiny pieces. Notifications, noise, deadlines, conversations, scrolling, multitasking, each pulling the mind in a different direction. The result is a restless brain, an anxious heart, a tired spirit. Right concentration is the antidote. It is the training that heals fragmentation. The discipline that transforms noise into silence. The doorway through which insight becomes possible. What is right concentration? Right concentration is not about force. It is not about suppressing thoughts or creating a blank, empty mind. It is the art of unifying attention, bringing the mind into such steadiness that it becomes peaceful, radiant, and unshakable. The Buddha described this state as samadhi, a mind collected, stable, bright, and deeply at ease. Imagine the difference between a flickering candle and a laser beam. The candle's light is gentle but unfocused. The laser beam can cut through steel. Right concentration turns your scattered attention into a laser of awareness, capable of cutting through illusion, fear, and suffering. The 4 levels of absorption, jhana. Though not required for lay practitioners, the Buddha taught 4 profound stages of meditative absorption, known as jhana. These represent increasing levels of stillness, joy, clarity, and equanimity. We describe them not as goals, but as possibilities of the trained mind. First, jhana, applied attention, joy, and rapture. The mind becomes absorbed in a single object, often the breath, with sustained focus.
Joy arises, a sense of relief, ease, and uplift. This is the first taste of mental freedom. Second jhana, unification of mind. Thought becomes quieter. Joy deepens into a more stable happiness. The mind feels unified and steady, no longer wobbling or wandering. This stability can feel like coming home. Third jhana, deep contentment and equanimity. Joy softens into tranquility. Bliss becomes peace. The mind rests effortlessly. This level is often described as a lake without ripples. Fourth jhana, profound stillness and equanimity. Pleasant and unpleasant sensations fade. The mind becomes completely balanced.
This state is not emotionless. It is emotion beyond turbulence. The Buddha described it as purity of mindfulness due to equanimity. These states show what the human mind is capable of, but the path does not require mastering them. Even a small amount of concentration can reduce anxiety, improve clarity, and make mindfulness vastly more powerful. The goal is not perfection. The goal is steadiness. You just need enough concentration to stay present through the storms of the mind. The science behind concentration. Modern neuroscience confirms what the Buddha discovered. Focused meditation strengthens the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for emotional regulation and decision-making. It reduces activity in the amygdala, the brain's fear and stress center. It increases gray matter density in regions linked to memory, compassion, and empathy. Even 10 minutes a day of focused breathing can produce measurable changes. Concentration meditation is not spiritual fantasy. It is brain training, evidence-based, reproducible, transformative. How to practice right concentration. Here is a simple, powerful method used for centuries. 1. Choose a single object of focus. The breath is most common, but you may also use a mantra, a candle flame, bodily sensations, loving kindness, a repeated phrase. The object doesn't matter. Consistency does. 2. Allow attention to rest gently on it. Do not force, do not strain. Let the mind settle the way mud settles in water, slowly, naturally, without pressure. 3. When the mind wanders, return without judgment. This returning is the muscle of concentration. Each return is a repetition. Each repetition builds strength. You don't fail when you wander. You grow when you return. 4. Let the mind become steady. As distractions soften, the mind becomes calm, clear, bright. This is the taste of samadhi. Why right concentration matters for real life. Right concentration trains you to remain steady when life is not. You become centered in situations that once overwhelmed you. A stressful conversation, a wave of anxiety, a sudden disappointment, a temptation, a conflict, a fear, a moment of loss. Instead of reacting automatically, you pause, you breathe, you see clearly, you respond wisely. The ability to stay calm under inner turbulence is one of the greatest forms of freedom. Right concentration heals the fragmented mind. Think of what modern life does to your attention. You start one task and jump to 5 others. You check your phone dozens of times an hour. Your mind is constantly stimulated. You rarely spend 5 minutes in silence. You chase micro-dopamine hits all day. This fragmentation is not harmless. It creates anxiety, restlessness, irritability, inability to focus, emotional volatility, sleep problems, weakened intuition. Right concentration reverses these effects. It gathers the mind, heals the scattered attention, restores depth, rebuilds emotional resilience. It gives you back the ability to be here. The rising of inner strength. As concentration deepens, something remarkable begins to happen. You become less disturbed by others' behavior. You become less controlled by your thoughts. You become less reactive to emotions. You become less anxious about the future. You become less attached to the past. You become less shaken by uncertainty. This is inner strength, not toughness, not suppression, not numbness, but a quiet, stable presence that no longer depends on conditions. This is the beginning of true freedom. Right concentration and awakening. Most importantly, concentration makes insight possible. When the mind becomes still, you begin to see reality with microscopic clarity. How craving forms, how emotions arise, how thoughts come and go, how identity is constructed, how suffering is created, how suffering can end. Right concentration opens the door for the deepest awakening. The direct realization that the mind is not solid, the self is not fixed, and freedom is not somewhere far away. It is here, in the stillness behind every breath. Right concentration is not about escaping life. It is about meeting life from a place of strength and clarity. It is about becoming unshakable in a world that never stops shaking. With this training, the Eightfold Path becomes complete. Inner clarity becomes outer peace. Presence becomes wisdom. Stillness becomes liberation. Now we move to the final step, integrating all of this into daily life. A life lived with mindfulness, compassion, and unshakable freedom. The Eightfold Path is not a set of spiritual ideas to admire from a distance. It is not meant for monasteries alone, or for monks sitting beneath ancient trees. It is meant for you, a human being living in a fast, noisy, complicated world, with responsibilities, relationships, fears, dreams, and imperfections. The Buddha did not teach a path to escape the world. He taught a way to live inside it with freedom, a way to walk through ordinary life, cooking, working, parenting, loving, grieving, and transform each moment into a step toward awakening. This part is about that integration, how the Eightfold Path becomes a lived experience, how mindfulness becomes a lifestyle, and how wisdom becomes your new default way of being. Why integration matters more than perfection. Spiritual practice is not about becoming flawless. You will still feel irritation, sadness, confusion, desire, fear, and doubt. Even enlightened beings feel pain. What changes is the relationship you have with these experiences. Instead of reacting blindly, you respond with awareness.
Instead of running away, you meet the moment with clarity. Instead of clinging, you release gently. Instead of drowning in emotion, you breathe inside it. Instead of resisting change, you flow with it. Freedom is not the absence of difficulty. Freedom is the ability to stay open-hearted in the midst of difficulty. Integration means that awakening is not something you visit, it becomes where you live. Bringing right view into daily life. Right view becomes the lens through which you interpret everything. When plans change, impermanence is natural. When someone hurts you, they are suffering too. When success fades, this is the nature of conditions. When joy arises, this is beautiful and it will pass. When fear appears, this is a mind state, not reality. This shift dissolves half of your suffering instantly. The world doesn't need to change, your understanding does. Bringing right intention into daily choices. Every day, choose one intention. Letting go, goodwill, harmlessness. Carry it into your conversations, your work, your routines. Let it color your thoughts. Let it shape your tone of voice. Let it soften your reactions. These intentions slowly reshape your character, the way water shapes stone, not through force, but through consistency.
Bringing right speech into relationships. In real life, this looks like pausing before replying, choosing clarity over sarcasm, choosing kindness over victory, choosing honesty over comfort, choosing silence over harmful words. Your relationships become lighter. Communication becomes cleaner. Trust deepens. Conflicts soften. Right speech doesn't only change how you talk, it changes who you become. Bringing right action into your way of moving through the world. You begin to ask, does this action reflect the person I want to be? Does this choice reduce harm? Does this align with wisdom? Does this bring clarity or confusion? When your actions align with your values, your mind stops fighting itself. Inner peace is not something you chase, it becomes the natural effect of living truthfully. Bringing right livelihood into your work. You spend most of your life working. Work that contradicts your values drains your spirit. Work that supports your values nourishes it. Integration here might look like being honest in your profession, refusing unethical practices, simplifying your lifestyle, gradually transitioning to work that serves others, bringing presence into every task, treating co-workers with compassion. Right livelihood means that even your job becomes part of the path to awakening. Bringing right effort into emotional life. The 4 great efforts become everyday strategies. Protect the mind. Avoid known triggers. Release the unwholesome. Pause, breathe, soften. Cultivate the wholesome. Gratitude, kindness, presence. Sustain the wholesome. Nurture peace once it appears. This is emotional mastery, not control, but cooperation with the mind's nature.
Bringing right mindfulness into every moment.
Mindfulness stops being an exercise and becomes a way of being. Mindful eating, mindful walking, mindful listening, mindful breathing, mindful working, mindful resting. You begin to taste life fully instead of rushing through it. A cup of tea becomes a meditation. A conversation becomes a sacred exchange. A moment of silence becomes refuge. Even washing dishes becomes a way to come home to yourself. Bringing right concentration into the heart. Stillness becomes your anchor, not escape, not withdrawal, but stability. When the storm comes, you have a place inside you that does not move. A mind trained in concentration becomes clearer, calmer, more resilient, more present, more intuitive. You stop drowning in thoughts. You stop being pulled by cravings. You begin to live from the center, not the surface. Integration turns life into practice. When all 8 elements weave together, life itself becomes meditation. Every moment becomes a teaching. Every challenge becomes a training. Every emotion becomes a doorway. Every interaction becomes an invitation. This is the secret. Awakening is not something you do. Awakening is something you live. You live it while standing in line, while speaking to a loved one, while handling disappointment, while enjoying a good meal, while sitting in silence, while holding someone's hand, while facing fear, while accepting joy, while letting go. The Eightfold Path is not a destination. It is a lifestyle that slowly dissolves the causes of suffering and reveals the natural clarity, kindness, and wisdom of the heart. You don't become someone new. You return to what you truly are when craving, fear, and confusion fall away. In the next part, we draw all of this together. The mistakes, the insights, the teachings, and the path, into a conclusion that illuminates the true purpose of life and the way to walk it with freedom. The real purpose of life was never to chase happiness. It was to understand suffering and end it. Everything you have ever longed for, everything you have pursued, everything you have feared losing, all of it leads back to the same truth the Buddha discovered beneath the Bodhi tree. It is craving, not life, that creates your pain. And when craving falls away, even for a moment, you taste the freedom that has always been yours. You do not need a different life to awaken. You need a different relationship with the life you already have. So begin simply. One intention, one mindful breath, one compassionate choice. Walk the Eightfold Path not as a theory, but as the rhythm of your days. Freedom grows quietly, step by step. And when you no longer run from suffering, you discover something extraordinary. The peace you were seeking was inside you all along.